Welcome to Not Today Cancer. It's Wednesday, and I am thrilled to have Tirzah Cooper here with me today to share her story. Tirzah is a 37-year-old mother of two, Veda, she's 18, and Mason, who's 13. She grew up in Vancouver, British Columbia, and now lives in Saskatoon with the love of her life, fiance Ricky Forbes. She has an incredible photography business and was working with a surgeon who specializes in breast cancer reconstruction, so she was well versed on the topic when she herself was diagnosed. She shares her journey on social media and is just incredible. You have to follow her. She's so fun, and I love all the things you do. You'll be totally inspired. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much, Jen. It's honestly an honor being here and being able to just share my story and keep bringing awareness for women and for breast cancer.
Yeah. And we were introduced through a mutual friend, Natalie Jill. It's always so nice when people are like, oh, you need to connect with her. I'm like, okay, awesome. And I just kind of stalked you and I'm like, oh, you are just so incredible and beautiful and all that you've endured. And I just know that you will be a light for other women. So I'm
Thank you so
excited for you to
much.
share. So let's talk about your diagnosis. How did you find out about it? And what was your exact diagnosis?
So I found my diagnosis on my own. I had a lump in my right breast, and I actually found it back in August of 2021. And I had some benign lumps here and there, and I always checked them out. I got an ultrasound and a mammogram. They were always just benign. So in August of 2021, I did the same thing when I found a new lump, and they sent me for an ultrasound and told me it was benign and to just kind of follow up in 6 months, which I did. Had another ultrasound. They said it hadn't changed and it was just a benign lump. But then 3 months later, it just grew like double the size. So, and that was May of last year. So I had another ultrasound done, and that's when they said, okay, this looks suspicious. We should do a mammogram. The mammogram, though, which is interesting because it's another part of kind of what I want to bring awareness to, is the mammogram didn't show anything suspicious. And I had breast implants before my cancer diagnosis. So with the breast implants and with just having dense breasts on the mammogram, it didn't show up as anything. So because I had that lump and I could feel it, they did a biopsy, and then that's how I found out it was actually cancer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did it show up on the ultrasound?
It did show up on the ultrasound.
So,
Yeah.
but not the mammogram.
Not the mammogram. Mm-hmm.
It is wild how often I hear that.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many missed cancers because the mammogram doesn't see everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, wow. And so, did you kind of have a feeling was your intuition like this isn't right? Like,
I did. I had a feeling just because of how fast it had grown, and it was noticeably larger. It was you could see it, through my skin. So I guess I kind of had a feeling. And then when I did see it on the ultrasound, just the way that it looked completely different from any other benign lump that I've had. It kind of had little legs and arms coming out of it, if you can imagine. So
yeah,
I did have a feeling.
Star-like shape.
Yeah. Yeah, it looked a little scary.
Yeah, and so I definitely want to talk about the breast implants because I had breast implants prior as well when I was diagnosed, and dense breasts. And luckily, my surgeon actually was like, I can't even believe that the radiologist saw this. Like, it was so hard to see because of the dense breasts. And that's another thing that so many women have no idea about. I didn't know.
I know. And you think, no, and you think dense breasts, you think big, heavy breasts. That's actually not what it is at all.
Right.
And I only found that out after my diagnosis because I didn't have any breast tissue really on my own. It was so thin. But even though, I barely had any, I have dense breasts on a mammogram. So you don't really know that. And the radiologists don't really explain it to you either when you're in a mammogram. So I think a lot of it is just kind of having to educate yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think they're changing that now.
Yeah.
I think there's new laws that are coming out that they are changing it. And so women just need to know that, because I had no idea that
Hmm.
if you had dense breasts, that that was at all associated with the risk of possible breast cancer. No idea.
Yeah.
And that needs to, and that's what I think they're now sharing on that report, and knowing the different levels and what you can do, and maybe incorporating an ultrasound along with your mammogram. And that's probably what you do now, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially not with not trusting that. Okay, so what was your exact diagnosis?
So they found a 2 centimeter tumor, which was invasive carcinoma. And then I was sent for an MRI, which showed that I did have DCIS, which is
Mhm.
like ductal carcinoma in situ, which means it's the cancer was spreading kind of outside of the tumor area, but it wasn't actually in my skin yet, but it was just in kind of that breast tissue area. So it
Okay.
was 2 different types of cancer. Stage 2, just because of the size and how much it had spread across the breast. I didn't have any in my lymph nodes, thankfully. So, and then the type of cancer was hormone positive. So it was estrogen positive, progesterone like low positive, and then my
Mhm.
HER2 was negative. So,
Yeah.
and that's another thing too, like that probably sounds like a bunch of gibberish to people who don't know, but there are different types of breast cancers, whether it's like hormone receptor positive or not. So because mine was, that just kind of comes with a whole other, you know, slew of things that you have to
It does. And it
deal
is
with.
wild how breast cancer, like, it's not just like I have breast cancer. No,
No.
there's like ER, PR positive, HER2 negative, stage 1, grade 2, like there's so much to it. It's
Yeah.
just, it's crazy. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so your reaction.
Um, I think it was a lot more calm than I expected or thought I would be. I think maybe because I kind of, like you said, had a feeling, and because of where I worked, I just knew a lot about it. So looking back, being in the dark kind of would have been probably easier. But I think because I'm more of like a rational thinker, and I like having all the facts and just kind of going from there. So I thought, you know what? Okay, if this is cancer, this is what I'm going to do, and I kind of just already had a plan in my head. But when I initially found out, I don't even think I really thought about myself. I just thought about everyone else, and kind of,
Same.
just having to tell your children and having to tell your fiance, and then yeah, just so much goes through your mind at that time. But
Hmm.
I handled it, I think, calmly,
That's
as calm
amazing.
as I could. Yeah.
I did not.
No.
I totally freaked out. And it's so funny because I've been dealing with cancer with my husband for so long, but I
Right.
I panicked a little bit. And then I didn't freak out for long. I gathered myself, and I'm a researcher at heart. I'm like you, where give me all the facts. Let me
Hmm.
figure out what I need to do, and then I just like take action on it. Okay, so what was your first treatment? Like what treatments did you go through?
So they wanted to do chemotherapy first.
Hmm.
So I did 5 months of chemo, 16 treatments in total, which was really difficult. And then after I had the chemo, I had a double mastectomy. And then I had the reconstruction surgery just 2 months later. So I'm about 7 weeks out now from my last surgery. And
That's crazy.
yeah, I mean, it's all from the time I was diagnosed to, today, it hasn't even been a year. So it just
That's
kind of
crazy.
feels like the last 11 months have just been just a wild
It's like a
journey.
fog, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's like you're like, wait, am I in a dream? It's just so weird. You feel like you're having an out of body experience just watching yourself going through this. And then when finally everything kind of stops, you're like, what just happened?
Yeah. Did that happen?
I know. Have you gone through, so you're kind of at the point where a lot of women can feel, after that year mark, like, why am I like having a hard time with it right now? Like
Yeah.
some Have you felt that?
Yeah, it's been really interesting actually. Like I have shared my journey kind of just from day one. Even when I had my ultrasound and I hadn't had my biopsy results yet, I decided to start kind of recording everything and just um, keeping like a diary online.
Hmm. So
And
smart.
yeah, I just had a feeling that it was going to be something. And then, so, you know, I always kind of thought chemo was going to be the hardest thing, but you're just in this fight mode, and the whole time you're going through chemo, you kind of have like an end goal, like, okay, you're counting down how many treatments you have left. You're just constantly like, I can do this, and pumping yourself up, and then surgery's one hump, and then you get over that, and then you're at this stage where I'm at now, where people would think, oh, you must just be so relieved and you must feel so good. And I feel worse now than I did the last, 9 months, which is crazy. And I think people don't fully understand that unless you've gone through it. But
Hmm.
it's this weird time where you're just kind of monitored, every day. Everyone's asking you how you are. And then all of a sudden, you're on your own and you're cancer free as far as you know, and you're supposed to just go back to normal. And I think
Yeah.
that is the part that people don't ever ask, and they see that, you're feeling good, you look good, your hair's coming back, so they think, okay, Tirzah's going to be back to normal, and
Hmm.
you're never going to be back to normal. So
No, never.
I find this part actually harder than going through active treatment.
It really is. And I think of it as almost like grieving who you were prior to it. Because
Mm-hmm.
people do assume, oh, she's done.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations. And you get to go back to like your normal life. And you're like, no, you don't, because you all of a sudden had a moment, or you all of a sudden realize how short life can be.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're looking back at your life and you're like, oh my God, what changes do I need to make? What should I not be doing? What can I be doing?
Yeah.
Like you don't have that free spirit of
No.
just like having a life of just a worry free life where you just don't think like this couldn't happen to me. You don't have the grace of having that anymore.
No, you don't. Yeah.
Do you think that's kind of what it is for you?
I think it is definitely all those things you said, kind of mixed with, you just don't really know what you're supposed to be doing, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
anymore. And for me, I chose not to go back to the job that I was at prior to my diagnosis. From talking to a lot of women, actually, I've found out a lot, like a high percentage of them choose not to go back to their job because after something like this, you really start to think about everything and where you spend your time and your days and your hours. And if it's not fulfilling or not kind of bringing you joy, a lot of breast cancer survivors will just kind of totally change their life moving forward. So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
love it though. I think from everybody, the stage where you are right now, you still have some time that you need to get through this. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you still have some processing to do. But I do feel like women who are out a couple years or 3 years and that are still stuck in fear, they haven't made the appropriate changes in their life.
Right.
And I hear time and time again, I don't know if you were in a stressful job, but I, in my opinion, and I know not everybody thinks this, in my opinion, I think it is so important to look back at your life prior to your diagnosis and evaluate it
Mm-hmm.
and say what needs to change, because what I was doing before, somehow I got this cancer diagnosis, so how can I change? Do you believe that?
I do believe that. And that's actually
Okay.
why I was so excited to be on your podcast, just because you talk so openly and freely about that. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
such a believer in that. And I have made, not just career changes, but life changes and changes with relationships and friends. And a big one for me was just completely cutting out anything that brings stress into my life, whether that is something that I was doing, people who I was maybe surrounding myself with, but I'm way more careful about my circle and who I give my time and energy to. And just the little things, maybe it's because of the cancer diagnosis, but I make a conscious effort to not get worked up over things and not let things stress me out. And I see things differently too, for example, it was kind of halfway through my treatment. My 18-year-old daughter had to take my car to go do something, and she accidentally hit a pole and scratched, my entire right side of my car. And she came home and she was so scared to tell me, and I didn't care. I
That makes
just,
me want to cry a little bit.
yeah, though, it's like little things that
Yes.
consciously I'm not doing it, but I guess I am, because I didn't care. And at the end of the day, I said, you're safe. It doesn't matter. It's a car, So I think it definitely has just changed my perspective on how I see things, how I react to things, and what's truly important at the end of the day.
That's so interesting that you say that. Literally, I think it was maybe 3 weeks ago, my son, who's almost 18, we could hear him leaving in the morning. He's a senior.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we heard this loud bang. And I was like, oh, he forgot to open up the garage door.
Oh no.
So I went running out there and he was so bummed. I'm like, it's good. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
It's okay. We couldn't even open up his garage stall. It didn't work anymore.
Oh
So I'm
no.
like, just take my car. You're fine. It's all
Right.
good. No big deal.
Yeah.
What you just said was super powerful, because it is your reaction, and the
Mhm.
things that used to bother you before don't.
They don't.
And if they
Yeah.
still do, they shouldn't, and you should
Yeah.
make some changes.
No, I completely agree.
Yeah, I think stress and I was on a fast pace before. Like,
Mhm.
go, 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 doing all the things, all this emotions with my husband, Darren. I was
Yeah.
shoving all that down. I'm fine. I got this. And it was my diagnosis that was like, taught me, holy cow, I need to pay attention to my body
Yes.
and
Yeah.
what I'm doing to it, and meditate. And do you meditate too? Did you
I
incorporate
do.
that?
I started kind of shortly after I was diagnosed, and I've never been good at it. It was
Same.
something that I would try, and I'd be like, yeah, it's not for me. But then I found some really good guided meditation apps, and now it's just part of my everyday. Whether I do it
Same.
kind of at night to wind down, and I have this new routine where I kind of do that. I go over the things that I'm really grateful for, and I just kind of take a time to acknowledge those, because it could always be worse. And to be in my situation where I've come out the other side and I can, help other women or bring awareness. I know there's a lot of women that aren't in our position. And
Yeah.
so I actually kind of find the diagnosis like a little bit of a blessing in disguise for
Yep.
me personally, because
And you know
it
what?
did
You're
slow
gonna
me down.
It did. And you're
Yeah.
going to, I think you're going to even be, okay, so that was me. And the way you said it was, I think, that was me too.
Yeah.
It took, like, Darren has always said that, oh, cancer's a blessing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I'm not happy that I got it.
No,
But,
and I'm not saying
but
that
it's
either.
time. Right.
Yeah.
Right. But today I'm 2 years, whatever, and a few months out, I can honestly say I really am.
Mm-hmm.
It changed me in every aspect, like getting more spiritual. Like I didn't have that in me before. Understanding like life, like I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
And yeah, meditation was huge. I swear by the app Unplug. That's what I use. Which one do you use?
I just find some on Spotify. I'm not even sure.
You
Yeah.
can find them anywhere. They're on YouTube, wherever. But Unplug is a great one. There was another one. I thought you were going to say that one.
I think
can't remember the name.
Impulse maybe is an app, I think, as well.
Yeah, there's a bunch.
Yeah.
But definitely that was one of the biggest game changers for me.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I same thing. Like I became a lot more spiritual, just kind of made some big decisions with what we were eating, just cutting things out. And we were healthy before, or what, you think maybe you were healthy, but then when you do a little bit more research after a cancer diagnosis, you start saying, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't be using this deodorant or, things like that. So we've just been a
Yeah.
little bit more aware. Um, and trying to eat more greens, more clean. It's hard though. It's not
Mhm.
an easy world that we live in with everything being processed and pumped full of hormones, and so um, it's difficult. But I think it's possible.
It
So
is.
that's what
And
we're
it
kind
is.
of
And it is.
trying.
And it is overwhelming. And that's the
It
other thing
is,
is,
yeah,
so I had somebody say to me, I don't understand what's the point of fitness and health if you're going to get a diagnosis anyway. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much to it. Like,
yeah,
what the changes I made were so simple.
yeah.
But I did change even the way I worked out. Like, I'm kinder to my body
hmm
for sure. What about nutrition for you? What did you change for nutrition?
Uh, so I eat a lot of chicken. I
Hmm.
loved chicken. I would eat it every day. Um,
Same.
and I'm switching more to salmon. Um,
Hmm.
I've never been a fan of red meat, so I didn't really eat
Same.
it. And then I'm just trying to eat more greens and just kind of, be just more aware of like what you're eating, if it's processed, if it isn't,
Hmm.
even down to the chicken, like getting chicken in bulk, and the chicken breasts are huge, that's not normal. So I'm just trying to think a little bit more when you go to the grocery store about like what you're putting in your body. And you can't avoid
Yeah.
it, but you can definitely make some changes.
Yep. And it does,
Yeah.
and like you said, it doesn't have to be everything all at once where you have to
Yeah.
change everything in your house. But I did the same thing. I kind of started looking at my makeup a little bit. And again, I'm not perfect with that.
Yeah.
And, we started looking at like the cleaning products we were using. And but just if you're listening and you're just going through it, don't overwhelm yourself. Just
hmm
little things over time is going to help.
Yeah.
But definitely nutrition, I think, is a really important one for people to look at, and exercise.
Yes.
Like
And exercise.
exercise, like moving your body every day. I think it's like 150 minutes is it can reduce the risk of recurrence by 55%. That's nuts.
That's huge. Yeah.
I know. So what kind of workouts do you do?
Well, I was doing a lot more before everything happened.
Hmm.
So I actually just was able to go back to the gym just a week ago. So, and it's been the first time since this whole thing started. So I just, like you said, I was just really kind to myself, and I just
Hmm.
started on the elliptical for like 20 minutes, and then I stopped because I think you you can't compare yourself to the person you were before. You can't go back thinking you're going to be able to do what you were doing at the gym, And also, I've just been at home for the last 11 months, and I haven't been doing a whole lot. So I'm just starting to slowly, even just get like movement in, like you said.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it's
movement is
different.
key, and it
Hmm
and it can be walking. Like I remember
Yeah,
thinking like, "Oh, I'm not going to waste my time with walking. I got to get a power workout in."
I
And now
know.
I look forward to my daily walk. And that's what I think people overcomplicate exercise.
Hmm
And it doesn't even need to be going to the gym. It's just standing and moving more and taking a walk around your block and maybe adding a couple minutes every day or maybe going a little bit of a faster pace. Like
Yeah.
it's not complicated to just move your body. And I think, but it's a super important healing modality after a diagnosis. So speaking of, did you do any other extra healing modalities or did you, I mean, obviously you changed your diet. Did you do like sauna or, you
Yeah,
know,
so I love the sauna, dry
mhm,
sauna.
yeah.
I find that really, really helps with my joint pain. So
Hmm.
I'm on hormone blockers, the estrogen blockers, just because of the type of cancer that I had.
Which one are
So
you on?
I have a injection every month that stops my ovaries from making estrogen, and then I take
Hmm.
an anastrozole, which is a
Hmm.
daily pill to stop other parts of my body from making estrogen. So it's put me into induced menopause at 37,
Lovely.
which is just great, so I'm, still kind of dealing with that, and dealing with those side effects. But joint pain was one of them, that I noticed, where I would just wake up in the morning and I would be stiff and achy everywhere. So I did find that even just moving quickly resolved that, but the sauna really, really helped with that too.
Yeah, acupuncture helps too. So
Yes.
I did the same thing. I had letrozole, or I mean Zoladex. I'm sure you're
Hmm.
on Zoladex. Yeah. So Zoladex to shut down my ovaries, and then I, after like 3 or 4 months, I'm like, wait. Well, I actually asked right away. I'm like, how long do I have to do this for? And they're
Hmm.
like 5 years. I'm like, wait, what? No, do not want to do this for 5 years. And I said, and I'm done having kids. Can I please just have my ovaries removed?
Yeah.
And my doctor, my oncologist was like, just give it a few months and then we'll go from there. And so I just said, my stomach is like, I just said some things. And
Yeah.
so I had my ovaries out and I'm so happy with that decision.
Yeah, I'm on the wait list. So
Oh,
here
good.
in Canada, I'm not sure if it's different, but we're kind of put on like a surgery elective wait list. So it's quite a long wait. So I'm on the wait list because I too have finished having kids, and I'm just hoping that I can get in soon because it is really inconvenient to have to go for this injection every month, and you're sore after, and you have to kind of plan your life around it, and it just seems it just seems like such a crazy
Yeah.
thing to do after everything. Just
And it's just a reminder
yeah,
every month going to the
another
doctor,
one.
the cancer center, and you just are like, can I just not? So hopefully they'll get you in. That would be hard being on a wait list.
Hmm.
And then so I was on, I feel like, isn't that exemestane, the anas
Or
I can,
anastrozole.
okay, so maybe that's the other one. But if you're really struggling with joint pain, you can switch.
I
So
know. Yeah, they're
I
they're doing the
switched
whole we want to wait thing as
I
well.
switched to letrozole. We
Okay.
really researched it, and my looking into it, I feel like that might be the best one. And I was on exemestane for, well, just over a year,
Okay.
and I had some major issues with joint pain. Like my hands, they felt like they were like 80-year-old hands in the middle of the night.
Mhm.
And letrozole, I'm having no issues with that.
Okay,
None.
that's good to know. Yeah, I've only
Yeah.
tried the anastrozole, so
Yeah.
I'm hoping I can maybe try something else too. But I
Yeah.
did
And
do
that's the
acupuncture as well, so I find that helps a bit too.
acupuncture definitely helps
Yeah.
for sure. And yeah, so those listening, just make sure you realize if you're on an aromatase inhibitor, there's 3 different types that you can try. So if you're struggling, don't give up yet.
Mhm.
Just switch. It's insane how many women quit. It's
Well, it's
40%.
funny because another side effect I think from it is just the insomnia at night, and then hot flashes at night. So I'm up all night long. And then that's when I start Googling things or looking up things because I'm thinking, this is not sustainable. I can't live like this. So I did see that there were other options. So I'm hoping that it's only, a couple months where I'm having this, but I'll probably try switching if it doesn't resolve.
I would switch
Hmm.
for sure. And I was almost like, I was super frustrated too. And I went into my oncologist appointment and I was like, listen, I do all the right things right now.
Hmm.
I mean, at least 80% or 90% of it. And I'm like, I can't live like this. Like, I
No.
have to be able to walk around and move my body. And I was like, can I just go off? And she went over the risks if I do. And I was like, dang it.
See, and
So
I've maybe you can answer this for me because I have a lot of like miscommunication from my oncologist and just like other women I've spoken to. So for me, like my diagnosis, I got at 36, and then they want to keep me on the hormone blockers for 5 years. So which would take me to 42 years old. But when I asked, okay, so what happens after the 5 years? They said, well, then you can stop the hormone therapy. And that's if I don't get my ovaries taken out. And I said, okay, but then would I not be at risk for, starting estrogen production again since I would only be 42? Um, and their answer was kind of, well, based on all the clinical trials, after 5 years, if you don't have a reoccurrence, then you don't need to be on it anymore. And I just thought, well, that sounds crazy. So I mean, I have some time to kind of research it and think about it, but I don't know. Have you ever heard that or talked to other
I
women?
haven't heard that. I
Okay.
mean, what I hear, to be honest, is that they tell women that you're on it for 5 years. It's typically 10.
Mm-hmm.
So you're probably, I mean, at least in the United States,
Right.
they'll say 5 years, but typically they're like, oh, let's extend it to like 3 more years. Like you're doing so well on it.
Yeah.
But if I were you, I would definitely have my ovaries removed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's crazy that they would just say, oh, we'll just like wait and see, especially if yours is ERPR positive.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you know what I mean?
And then I asked, okay, well, the clinical trials, are they done on women my age? And she said, no, it's, women your age all the way up until 70 or whatever. So I thought, well, that's not really relevant to me in my situation. So I think there's just, too, if you're going through it and you're young, just know what it all means and why you're on those pills and injections.
Yeah, and I think what's really important is doctors are amazing, but they don't know it all.
Right.
And I think so many women just go with what their doctor says, and I can tell you are not, which is good. You have to do your own research and figure out different things. In the other, there's a little bit of a frustrating part to that is you'll do the research and you'll see both sides of it.
Right.
So I think what you have to go with, or people listening, is you have to go with what your heart is telling you and what you believe in, because belief in what you're doing is the number one, most important thing.
Definitely.
Because if you're doing something, you're like, wait, I don't think this is right. I don't believe in it. I should be doing. Then that's not good. But just do what you feel is right. Do your research, look into it, and then once you start, just stick with that. That's kind of my recommendation on that.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Because the frustrating part is you can see both sides to everything.
Yes, absolutely.
It's insane. Okay, so I think we kind of talked about this. I know you're dealing with the hot flashes. That does ease up a little bit. Just so you know, it gets a little bit better. The hot flashes do get easier. I mean, I remember because all of a sudden you're thrown into menopause overnight, and you're like totally fine one day and the next day you're not, and it's like holy cow. But mine have gotten better, and I think making sure your room is so cold.
Yes.
So cold that you have a fan on you and your room is really dark.
Yeah.
And I take vitamin D at night. I take melatonin. Do you take melatonin?
I do. Yeah.
Is there any other menopause issues that you're dealing with?
Yeah, I'm dealing with vaginal dryness, which is something I feel like women don't talk enough about because it's embarrassing and nobody wants to talk about it. But I kind of decided when I, made the decision to be open and honest about this whole journey, it was going to be the good, the bad, and the ugly stuff. So it's important because I think people don't think about it. And even, if I didn't have a cancer diagnosis, I wasn't going to be thinking about menopause right now. And to think about it, like at 37, I'm engaged, we're going to get married. It's not ideal to have these menopause symptoms at my age and then not have anyone to talk about it with. So I'm finding now, like, even with your podcast or like Natalie Jill's podcast, it's becoming more of a topic that women are more comfortable talking about. So that's one of them. Just I haven't noticed my mood changing per se. I've just been struggling with, like, some days I wake up and I feel awful. And I don't know if it's from the hormone blockers or just menopause, but like I feel really, really rough, and it's really hard to kind of start the day. And I do have a lot of like brain fog still. So it could be from menopause, could still be from the chemo maybe in my body. But
and even your surgery. I mean, you've been through so much in the last year.
Yeah.
So just give yourself grace. I'm so glad you brought up vaginal dryness.
Yes.
Because I'm very open to. I mean, even in my book, I wrote about it. And I thankfully have a really good OBGYN. And after all this, she was like, okay, tell me how this is. How's this? And I was like, oh my gosh. And she just explained everything.
Yeah.
So, there's different, talk to your doctor, ask questions for those listening, but also there's solutions to that, that aren't estrogen driven, and you just have to figure out what works for you. But I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought that up because it's so important.
Yeah, and I have other women, who've reached out to me or follow me, and they're going through the same thing, and they're young, and they've asked me about it privately, and if it gets better, and kind of, is this my their big fear is like, is this my life now forever, where it hurts to have intercourse, and things are different, and
Mhm.
I guess what I would say is it's not manageable, like you said. Like, you can do other things and use lubes, and it's just that you can't really be spontaneous anymore.
That's
Things like
true.
that. But it's not the end of the world, and
No.
it's just one of those things that comes along with it. And
Yeah.
if you have a good partner and who's understanding, I think you guys can totally just come out the other side. It's just, you have to definitely talk about it.
Absolutely. I
Hmm.
love it. I've loved having you today. Did we miss anything else?
I don't think so.
I did want
Yeah.
to ask you, I always ask at the end of my podcast, cancer takes so much. I know you're kind of at the beginning, but it takes
Mhm.
so much away from you. What has it given you?
It's actually given me a new appreciation just for everyday life and
Mhm.
everything. And I know that sounds so corny, but it's true. Like, I just see things differently. I take the time to, like, notice things, like before, where maybe you'd just be distracted on your phone. I'm more present. I feel like it's given me more patience overall with everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really do feel like it's changed me for the better, and just kind of even my relationship with my fiance or my kids. So it's given me quite a bit.
Mhm. And you're
And
going to keep getting
yeah.
stronger and stronger. I can already tell. You just have it in you. And I can see you're definitely going to want to follow her, those that are listening, because she shares a lot on her social media. You're going to be a presence for other women going through it. And, I think finding purpose behind the madness of it all is such a gift. Gift
Yes.
for you and a gift for women that are following you. So thank you so much for being here. It was so fun having you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me too.